Media Melanie Talks TV. I'm Melanie, and today I'm back to talk about one of the most disturbing, horrifying television shows maybe in the last decade. But yet, like in prior seasons, I can't seem to stop watching and I cannot look away. I am talking about The Handmaid's Tale, which is based on the books by Margaret Atwood. I actually have not read the books, so I'm going into this blind, as I have in prior seasons as well. I do know there will be the spin-off, The Testaments, which is also based on one of Margaret Atwood's books, and that will be executive produced by Elisabeth Moss. But for now, I'm going to be talking about season 6 of The Handmaid's Tale, the final season. And these first 3 episodes gave us a lot of what we're familiar with. June Osborne putting herself in danger, trying to do the right thing, rescue Hannah, her daughter, who's still trapped in Gilead, Serena doing Serena things, and Lawrence and Nick kind of teetering this line of good and bad with their new role in New Bethlehem. But before I get more into it, please go ahead, hit the like button, and be sure you're subscribed to my channel. I will be here weekly with the Handmaid's Tale videos, and this week I will also start covering a brand new show on Apple TV+. It's called Your Friends and Neighbors. I've actually got a preview of it up right now, so go and check that out. What's funny is that we're getting content from both Elisabeth Moss and John Hamm in the same month. Of course, they starred together in Mad Men, which is one of my favorite TV series of all time. So if you enjoyed Mad Men, I hope that you do give Your Friends and Neighbors a look and catch my weekly videos for that as well. Okay, let's get into my initial reaction from The Handmaid's Tale, the first 3 episodes, which are called Train, Exile, and Devotion. These do a good job of setting the table for the revolution that we can expect this season, as there's a continued fight for the refugees of Gilead, trying to reunite with their families, potentially in New Bethlehem, what's going on with Janine and Aunt Lydia. There are a lot of moving parts. When we left off in season 5, we saw June getting on that train. Luke essentially took a bullet for the team, turned himself in, so that way June and Nicole could end up escaping. And yes, that was his plan the entire time, and there was a big cliffhanger where we saw June encountering Serena with Noah on this train ride. And that's where we pick up in this first episode of season 6 called Train. Now, some things that we did hear in the trailer, for years we were afraid of them, but now it's time for them to be afraid of us. And then conversely, we broke this country and now we have to fix it. So it does seem like there will be quite a bit of fighting, as we are accustomed to with The Handmaid's Tale, along with some potential redemption arcs for maybe Lawrence and Nick. Although Nick does usually seem to go with his heart more, as we saw with what he did here in these episodes, which I don't think surprised any of us. And I don't think any of us were surprised either when we got yet another Nick and June goodbye scene. The question is, will this end up being their last or not? Of course, June said, let's not do this again. Let's say see you later and not goodbye. The irony of it all would be if, in fact, they end up not seeing each other again, but that will be determined as we move throughout the season. We've also got Serena on somewhat of an apology tour. She's trying to fulfill God's plan. We get quite a few flashbacks to see how Serena got involved in this with her book tour and how things ended up just going incredibly wrong, when in the beginning she did have pure intentions for laying out a type of society that served the Lord more than a lot of these sins that were becoming prevalent within humanity. But of course, the irony of it is that Gilead was the most sinful place of all, committing awful atrocities for women, children, everybody involved. And this series as a whole is full of dramatic tension, but at the same time, a lot of it does feel overdone. Like I said, we've got June putting herself in positions of danger. She can never seem to be happy with the status quo, but at the same time, that's who she is as a character. She is on a hero's journey, and she has been from the beginning, fueled by the initial anger where she was separated from Luke and Hannah. Eventually, she fell in love with Nick when he was the driver and ended up impregnating her when she was the Waterford's handmaid. And then, of course, Nicole came out of her relationship with Nick. So it's a very tricky situation, especially when we see her former lover, Nick, and Luke having that moment of eye contact in the woods at the end of the 3rd episode. I mean, Imagine being Luke and having waited for her for so many years, and it's clear that June still does love Nick, but at the same time, I mean, she is using him so she can eventually get to Hannah, and in this case, she can free her husband. It's such an interesting tangled relationship web, and that's one thing I like the most, is the Luke and the Nick of it all. Now, are you team Luke? Are you team Nick? I'm curious. I think there's redeeming qualities about Nick, and I love that Luke did in fact wait for June, but I just feel like after all of the traumas that June went through in Gilead with Nick, I don't know, sometimes I lean more towards wanting her and Nick to be together. They do share a child, but I also wonder if Nick is going to end up throwing himself on the sword for June in the long run, because he really cannot shake his love for her, and that is the most tragic love story in all of this. And just in general, again, the horrific nature of this show and all of these disturbing storylines, it is disturbing to watch, but it's also hard to look away, especially in today's volatile political landscape where, I get texts from friends and family members alluding to the fact that our society is actually not that far off from what they made in Gilead. And yes, that may be an exaggeration, but at the same time, it's something, especially as a woman, that I worry about, and I worry about for my daughter, and I do hope that this fiction is one that never comes to fruition, because praise be, none of us need this in our lives. Gilead is not okay, and I'm curious to know, will New Bethlehem actually live up to what they hope it will be, or will it metamorphosize into another form of Gilead where they had good intentions, just like they did with Gilead, but things just get so far off track that there's really no coming back. Now, I also want to shout out the expressions on June's face throughout this entire series, and coming off of covering The White Lotus, which, by the way, if you watched or didn't watch, I did cover that season 3 on my channel, so don't miss that. But coming off of Parker Posey's performance as Victoria Ratliff, if you watched, you know what I'm talking about. These two actresses just have this innate ability to have facial expressions that tell a story without 1 ounce of dialogue. So shout out to Elisabeth Moss, also Parker Posey, and all of the actresses who can convey the depth of emotion without actually speaking a word. That is one of the biggest strengths that I feel Elisabeth Moss has brought to this series. You could tell an entire story just with June Osborne's facial expressions, and that in itself is quite an accomplishment and something that keeps me coming back for more. Politically, we have the table being set in Canada with Tuello and Maura, who essentially Mark is telling her that they're trying to really normalize relations with Gilead and try to form positive diplomatic relationships with New Bethlehem. Canada does not want the Gilead refugees anymore, and I think that Canada is hoping that this New Bethlehem will in fact do what it's saying it's going to do, offer a more peaceful approach, let some of these refugees reunite with their family members and live some semblance of a real life again, maybe somewhere in between the Gilead and the America of it all. But for now, we have a lot of those refugees actually fleeing Toronto and Canada and going to Alaska and Hawaii, which is where June ends up. Of course, before she goes and does try to free Luke and Maura from the May Day revolution that they asked to be a part of. So on the train ride from where we picked up in season 5, we had June having that very polarizing reunion with Serena. And it's interesting because they do have this deep connection, of course, formed in trauma. June was there when Noah was born, helped deliver her child. Serena, of course, played the role she did in June being a handmaid. And while she will never fully forgive Serena or be her friend, this connection is something that forges a unique relationship to where when Serena does get outed by the doctor, even though he confirms her papers, he let it be known that, yes, she is a war criminal, Serena Waterford, and wanted vigilante justice to take place. We see June coming to her rescue, defending her, when I thought these women were gonna pick her apart, even though we see Serena doing other things in the trailer, such as getting married, like who is she marrying at this point? Any guesses? Drop them in the comments. Knowing that, I realized that she wasn't going to get ravaged by the train people, but at the same time, I think that would have been quite a nice icing on the Serena cake, seeing her get that sort of vigilante justice, because you know what? She is a character that we love to hate. And there's a Serena in my real life who I absolutely cannot stand and is a terrible person. Every single time I see and hear Serena, I think of her. And so for me, I've got more hatred than I do sympathy for her because of that personal connection. But also, it is hard to lose sight of the fact that she did initially have pure intentions, albeit very conservative, very religious. She didn't mean for any of this to happen, although she was still very complicit. So at one point on the train, June, of course, had gotten run over by this truck, which caused Luke to end up getting arrested and turn himself in. But she just had surgery and she's not doing well. She had an infection. Ironically, Serena was the one who actually went to get the doctor that ended up turning her in. But when June wakes up from a nap and she's quite alarmed that she can't find Nicole, she goes over to Serena and is like, hey, don't touch my daughter. But I mean, here again, Serena really was trying to help June and said at one point, you're just an amazing, strong woman and these people tried to kill you. And June's like, well, no, Gilead tried to kill me. And, Serena played a hand in forming Gilead. So ultimately, Serena also plays quite a big part of June's character arc and what happened to get her here on this train ride. So June does defend her and she ends up throwing her off the train. I immediately thought, throw mama from the train. That is an older movie. But luckily, Serena and Noah were okay. And they end up at this faith-based woman community. And I'll get more into that later. But first, June ends up finishing the voyage and does end up at this place in Alaska for the refugees. In a very suspending of disbelief moment, she encounters her mom, Holly, there. What are the actual odds they would end up in the same place? I mean, maybe they're better than I think because there's probably only a few spots where these refugees are fleeing to. But I was like, of all the people, your mom's there? I mean, that's great. Don't get me wrong. It gives June an opportunity to leave her daughter there while she does go and try to free Luke and Maura from the water park when they are trying to get involved in this Mayday initiative to take down the extremist commanders down in Gilead. And it lets her tell her mom that, yes, this baby is named Nicole, but when she was born, I named her Holly. And for me, that moment, even though they've clearly had some ups and downs, including in these episodes, the fact that June's able to come around and share this incredibly emotional and impactful moment with her mom, and her mom is able to redeem herself for not always being there for June by offering to be there for her daughter and keep her safe while June goes and fulfills yet another mission. And luckily, she is able to complete this mission thanks to the help of Mark, who brings her to Nick, and the joy on her face when Nick says, okay, fine, you can come with me, just stay down in the back of the car. June was so happy to be there, which goes to the fact that I do think she still loves Nick, even though at one point she did refer to her love in the past tense. She does come around and say love in the present tense. For a moment, I thought, you know what? Maybe she's just saying that because she is using Nick, but I think there is something so genuine between the two of them, so I do find it to be authentic. And again, I think one of the best, most fulfilling arcs for me for Nick's story would be for him to sacrifice himself for June at the end, so she can live happily ever after with Luke, who ended up waiting for her, but also know that that was a real love and let her let go of that so she can actually move on once they finish this revolution or end up winning in the end, which I'm not sure if that is going to happen or not. I mean, I don't know a lot about what the Testaments is about, but I am hoping that she is able to somehow have a victory and get Hannah back and live happily ever after. So that is one of my biggest hopes for this season, even if it may not end up coming to fruition. And blessed be that fruit if that is the case, because you know what? I love a good happy ending and a bow ending for a series finale. Although I'm not sure if Handmaid's Tale is one of those shows that will ever give us a happy ending, so TBD, and I guess we'll see where we're at by the end of the season. And by the way, there are a full 10 episodes this season. We got the first 3, so there will be 7 remaining, and they will stream weekly on Tuesdays through May 27th. Remember, be sure you hit that subscribe button because I will be here weekly covering it. All right, so let's talk about Serena. As I mentioned, we do get quite a bit of flashbacks with her dad, gardening, in the early days of her book, and the high hopes that she had for changing society and being a difference maker and a thought leader. And unfortunately, yes, it did go very, very wrong. And despite the fact that things go horrifically astray with her initial plan and everything that happens in Gilead, fortunately for Serena, when June threw her off the train, she was able to make her way to this faith-based community with women and children. She takes up gardening again, and even though she does try to fool them, it does come out that she is in fact war criminal Serena Waterford. They knew who she was, and yet they still accepted her, which is kind of surprising. I mean, just given everything that transpired on the train, but it also goes to show that in this society, in this age and time, people are willing to forgive. There are still good people in the world who are willing to look past things and offer forgiveness to even some of the worst people out there. And it becomes clear that even though Serena's having a great time, she's gardening, which of course is this big metaphor for growth, for evolution, for a new life. And we see that throughout the entire series and in the flashbacks with her dad tending to the roses and whatnot. But it seems like she's bored. She doesn't necessarily want this peaceful life. Very similar to June. June and Serena have the same core values. They are not people who sit back. In Serena's case, she believes she needs to go and fulfill God's plan and help fix what she helped go wrong. So eventually, Mr. and Mrs. Lawrence end up coming to this community and recruiting Serena to essentially come and be a salesperson for New Bethlehem. Help let these diplomats know that things are going to be different. Women will actually be able to read and write here. They will not commit these same atrocities that they did in Gilead. And Serena does a great job monologuing and convincing everybody, telling them that she is proof of this concept of forgiveness, of new opportunities, of letting people reunite with their families and help forget about these things, even though there's no forgetting these terrible atrocities, traumas, and tragedies that many of these characters have gone through. She is doing her best to make a sales pitch, and it kind of works. Like she said, they're evolving. They're liberalized without spilling that blood. But how liberal can they actually be if they're still going by some of these cornerstones? And I guess I'm interested to see exactly what these new rules are in New Bethlehem and if everything is as it seems, or if under the surface there are still going to be some of these atrocities being committed just with less of a spotlight. Or perhaps they're right, and New Bethlehem will in fact be a fresh start and allow some of these characters to redeem themselves for the roles they played in Gilead. And the birth rate in Gilead has doubled. Obviously, other countries around the world are not having this same success. In fact, the women are astounded to see a pregnant Rose and to see Serena's baby and hold it. Imagine a world where babies aren't around. I mean, I love babies. My kids are now in their double digits, but every time I see little kids who are 2 years old, little babies, I mean, I just go right back to that time. Childhood is so precious, and I look back every day and wish I had more of that time with my kids, or maybe didn't take it quite for granted. And I know parents say that all the time, but the fact that there really are no babies and children around is quite sad. And I'm hoping that something I want the most out of everything, even though at one point Serena says something like, hey, you know, June, you're out of Gilead. But like June says, Hannah is still there, and June will never rest until she gets her back. And I just hope it's in time to where Hannah can turn her life around and make a new life in New Bethlehem and not have to be subject to the training that they're putting her through in Gilead. Now, I did mention earlier, and this is kind of a spoiler, I guess, but in the trailer, we see Serena walking down the aisle. Who do we think she is marrying? I mean, is it somebody that we know, someone we are unfamiliar with? I'm kind of wondering if it's going to be Rose's dad, perhaps. The way that he is kind of in awe and impressed with her, I got the vibe that he might be crushing on her, and that would be quite ironic if she ends up being in-laws with Nick. I mean, are you even kidding me? But the fact that Serena even gets the opportunity to reinvent herself after everything she did to set this table for that society and still try to fulfill this God's plan of hers, it's so fascinating to me. And while I'm not rooting for Serena by any stretch of the mind, I do hope that whatever her character arc ends up being, that it is fulfilling to us as viewers. And I'm not saying I want her to be killed off. I'm not saying I want her to have a happy ending. I hope she gets the ending that she deserves, whatever they find that to be. All right, and let's talk about Nick again. Clearly, his father-in-law is staying at their house, and he's not gonna let Nick out of his sights, even though Nick goes off and helps June with this water park rescue, puts himself in danger, and to double down, actually ends up shooting 2 people. He says he's gonna go back and take care of it, but I don't know. I'm kind of thinking, what if his father-in-law sends somebody to follow him, sees him cleaning it up, and starts questioning exactly what he's doing? Perhaps Nick will end up paying for these sins. I don't think his father-in-law is going to let him get away with it, especially because he signed a deal to be working with Canada. He did that as a trade-off to go and see June in the hospital. And can I even say, when he said, I was at the hospital, and again, the look on Elisabeth Moss's face, June Osborne's face, I mean, if that is not love, seriously, what is? And not to mention, Rose is not very happy with Nick either. I mean, everybody knows that he's in love with June. So I don't think they will end up together, because imagine the dismay of Luke after having waited so long, gone through everything he did, now become a revolutionary along with Mora, just like June has been all along. I mean, do we think that there is a world in which Nick and June end up together? Could they all end up together in New Bethlehem and co-parenting with Nicole/Holly? I mean, is that the happy-ish ending that we can hope for? Do we think that June and Luke and Hannah and Moira will end up in New Bethlehem? Or do we think that they will go back to Alaska or a settlement in Hawaii? I mean, we've still got 7 episodes to find out, and I am here for it. Then we have Lydia and Janine. Now, Aunt Lydia has gone through quite a transformation as well. She was very harsh towards the beginning of the series, but as time has gone on, she has definitely softened, and she did have her special girls, as she called Janine and some others. Ironically, some of these special girls she gave a little too much attention to, because now, despite the fact that they bore fruit and did what they were supposed to do, now they are here as Jezebels. But as Janine said, better than being in the colonies. I mean, yeah, I guess, but is it? I mean, Janine had an opportunity to go and live with the Waterfords, but she turned it down. She told Mrs. Waterford, I will never be your friend, and gave up the chance to be with her daughter. But the look on her face when she said that, and the fact that she was actually giving up on her daughter and she knew that she would be sent away, also speaks to the fact that Janine has quite a backbone as well. She's taken a page from June's book and tries to stand up for herself. Now, will she end up stuck here forever? Will Aunt Lydia be able to get her out? How will that propel into the Testaments? Again, I'm not familiar with the books and I'm not sure, though I do know it focuses on Aunt Lydia. So I'm curious, does Janine come into play? Does Janine get a happy ending? Will she potentially get to go to New Bethlehem? Will Aunt Lydia be a part of bringing her there and reuniting her with her daughter? So overall, in these first 3 episodes, it was good pacing to get us set up for the revolution that we saw in the trailers, and potentially character redemption for some of the bad guys, some of the in-betweens, and then hopefully more of a happy ending for some of our protagonists. I mean, what is going to come of June? Will she be reunited with Hannah? Will she end up with Luke? Will she end up with Nick? Who's gonna live? Who's gonna die? One thing I know for sure is that we can expect a lot of fighting, and that's something we've had throughout this entire series, is the fight for good and evil. June putting herself in danger over and over again for the good of everybody. And while this is quite a horrific and disturbing show, and some of it does feel a little bit repetitive season over season, I'm glad it's ending in season 6. I think potentially could have ended a little bit sooner, but it's nice it's coming to a close, and I do hope we get an ending that satisfies all of us. What did you think about these first 3 episodes? Definitely drop it down in the comments, and let me know your predictions for season 6. Like I said, I will be back covering it weekly, and I'm also covering that new show with John Hamm, previous co-star with Elisabeth Moss and Mad Men. Again, one of my favorite shows of all time, so definitely stick around for that. And if there are other TV shows that you'd like to see me talk about, as always, please drop them down in the comments. I am always open to suggestions, and I am ever grateful for everybody who tunes in with me week to week, who likes, who subscribes. I appreciate you. Thank you so much for being here. It is my absolute passion talking about TV with all of you. And I will be back at it again soon. Media Melanie, clicking off.